The first train of the morning screeched into the station, its metallic cry echoing through the cold air of Springfield, Illinois. Commuters bustled past, their breaths forming small clouds as they hurried toward their destinations. But there, on the far end of Platform 3, sat the same frail figure he'd been for the last 2 decades. An old man in a weathered brown coat, holding a faded photograph in his trembling hands. His name was Henry Walker, and for 20 long years he had waited, always on the same bench, always facing the same tracks, for someone who never came back. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like Henry's remind us that love doesn't fade with time, it endures, even when the world moves on. Henry had once been a strong, broad-shouldered man with a smile that lit up the small diner he ran downtown. In the early 1980s, he was known for his kindness, always giving a free cup of coffee to anyone down on their luck. But behind that cheerful demeanor was a man who had known heartbreak deeper than most could imagine. His wife, Margaret, was the love of his life, the kind of love people wrote songs about. They'd married young, built their life from scratch, and raised a son named Michael, whose laughter once filled their small house with warmth. But everything changed on a gray autumn morning 20 years ago. Henry still remembered every second, the sound of the rain on the roof, the way Margaret's hand slipped out of his as she said she was taking Michael to visit her sister in Chicago. There had been an argument the night before, harsh words hurt pride. Henry had said things he didn't mean. Margaret had left without looking back. Hours later, a train accident was reported on the news, a collision near Joliet. Dozens were injured, several missing. Margaret and Michael's names were never on the confirmed list. Their bodies were never found. For weeks, Henry couldn't accept it. He went from hospital to hospital, searching through every list, every waiting room, every morgue. But no one had seen them. Some said they must have perished in the wreckage. Others said perhaps they'd survived and lost their memory. Henry refused to believe either. He clung to the only thing he could, hope. So he began coming to the train station every morning at 7:45. The time the Chicago train used to depart. He'd sit on the same bench and watch every train arrive, his eyes scanning every face, his heart hoping for one miracle, that Margaret and Michael would step off the platform and call his name. Days became weeks, weeks turned to years, and then decades. The world around him changed. New trains, new faces, new generations. But Henry remained, like a statue frozen in time, waiting for the family that never returned. The townspeople came to know him as the station man. Some pitied him, others admired his devotion. Teenagers whispered stories that he was waiting for a ghost, and children waved at him as their parents hurried past. But Henry never cared what anyone thought. Every day, he'd clean the bench before sitting down, smooth his coat, and take out the photograph. Margaret smiling in her blue dress, Michael on her lap, both caught in a moment of perfect happiness. That was the image he waited to see again. As years passed, Henry grew frailer. His hair turned silver, his back bent slightly, and his hands trembled when he poured his coffee from the thermos he always carried. The station workers looked after him. The ticket clerk, a kind woman named Linda, often brought him breakfast. "Mr. Walker," she'd say softly, "you should rest. You've been coming here too long." But Henry would just smile and say, "She promised she'd come back on the train." Promises mean something, don't they? Winter after winter, he endured the biting cold. Summer after summer, he endured the heat. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and imagine Margaret walking toward him, her scarf fluttering in the wind. Sometimes he'd hear Michael's laughter and the sound of the train wheels. He lived in those illusions because they were kinder than reality. Then, one morning in late spring, 20 years after that tragic day, something unexpected happened. Henry was sitting on his bench, the morning light painting the tracks in gold, when a young woman approached him. She looked to be in her late 20s, with auburn hair and eyes that carried a strange familiarity. She paused in front of him, hesitant but kind. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently. "Are you Henry Walker?" Henry blinked, startled. No one had said his full name in a long time. He nodded slowly, clutching his photograph. The woman smiled softly. "My name is Emma Davis. My grandmother's name was Margaret." Henry froze. The world seemed to tilt. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Margaret, Emma nodded, eyes glistening. She was found after the accident, badly hurt, and taken to a small hospital outside Joliet. She lost her memory, sir. She didn't even remember her name. My mother, her daughter, helped take care of her years later, not knowing who she was until she passed away last year. Among her things, we found this. Emma handed him an old, folded letter. Henry's hand shook as he opened it. The handwriting was faint, but unmistakable. Margaret's. It was dated the day before the accident. It read, "If anything ever happens, know that I loved you more than life itself. And if I can't come back to you, I'll find a way to send a piece of me home." Tears filled Henry's eyes as his voice broke. She remembered. Emma knelt beside him. "She never stopped loving you, sir. She just couldn't find her way back." Henry wept, not with despair, but with release. The years of waiting, the loneliness, the endless ache, all of it dissolved in that single moment. He realized he hadn't been waiting in vain. Love had kept its promise, just in a way he hadn't expected. From that day on, Henry stopped waiting at the platform. Instead, he began spending time with Emma and her family. They'd invite him for dinners, and he'd tell stories of Margaret and the little diner they once owned. For the first time in decades, laughter returned to his life. The bench at the station remained empty, but people still spoke of the old man who'd waited faithfully for 20 years. One crisp autumn morning, the station staff noticed that Henry hadn't come by for several days. Concerned, Linda visited his home and found him peacefully seated by the window, holding the same photograph and Margaret's letter in his lap. His eyes were closed and there was a serene smile on his face, as though he had finally caught the train he'd been waiting for all his life. They buried Henry beside Margaret in the small cemetery overlooking the town. The townspeople placed flowers on his grave, and a small plaque was added at platform 3 that read, "For Henry Walker, who taught us that true love never forgets and hope never dies." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to keep such emotional stories alive. Your support helps spread kindness and faith in the power of love. Special request, comment below. Do you believe someone can truly wait a lifetime for love? And somewhere beyond the sound of the morning train, perhaps Henry and Margaret are together again, finally home.